The man dying on the kitchen floor wasn't human 5 minutes ago. Sheriff Miller stood there, gun still raised, hands shaking, watching Malcolm Driscoll bleed out from 3 gunshot wounds to the chest. The body was human now, naked, covered in blood and fur that was already dissolving into nothing. Malcolm's hand reached up, grabbing Miller's jacket. His mouth opened like he was trying to say something, trying to warn him about something, but only blood came out. His eyes locked onto Miller's face, desperate, pleading. Then Malcolm Driscoll died on that kitchen floor, and whatever he'd been trying to say died with him. Welcome to Lady E's Dark Tales. I'm Mistress Moan. This is the story of how Sheriff Miller discovered that monsters are real, and that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who don't know what they are. Let me take you back to where this all started. The first kid went missing in early September. Tyler Brennan, 17, last seen leaving school on a Tuesday afternoon. He was a punk kid, known for harassment, nothing serious enough to get arrested for. His parents reported him missing after he didn't come home that night. No body, no evidence, just gone. 3 weeks later, during the next full moon, 2 more students vanished on the same night. Ashley Chen and Marcus Webb both disappeared within hours of each other. Same school, same neighborhood, both bullied Bonnie Driscoll. That's when Sheriff Miller noticed the pattern. All 3 kids attended Roosevelt High School. All 3 had bullied the same quiet girl. Her name was Bonnie Driscoll. Miller brought Malcolm Driscoll in for questioning. Malcolm was a history teacher at the high school, single dad raising his daughter alone. Nervous the moment he sat down in that interview room. Sweating, fidgeting, fresh scratches running down his forearms. Before the interview, Miller had stopped by Roosevelt High School to get a sense of the girl at the center of all this. He found Bonnie Driscoll sitting alone in the library during lunch period, sketchbook open in front of her. She was drawing wolves running through a forest under a full moon. Small, fragile, the kind of kid who'd fold in on herself when someone walked too close. Her sleeves pulled down over her hands despite the warm building. Dark circles under her eyes. When another student bumped her table walking past, she flinched so hard her pencil went flying. This was the girl 3 teenagers had tormented, this quiet, scared kid hunched over her drawings. Miller couldn't make it add up. Miller asked about the missing kids. Malcolm said he knew them from school, that they'd given Bonnie trouble, but that was it. Miller asked about the scratches. Malcolm said he'd been clearing brush in his backyard. But here's what made Miller suspicious. When he asked how Bonnie was handling the stress of everything, Malcolm got this look in his eyes, protective, almost desperate. He said his daughter was going through changes, that she was at a difficult age, hard raising a teenage girl without her mother around to guide her through things. He talked about how Bonnie had been having trouble sleeping, waking up exhausted like she'd been running marathons in her dreams. The mood swings that came out of nowhere. Strange appetite changes. She'd started craving red meat, practically raw, which had never been her preference before. Malcolm actually laughed nervously about how she'd eat a steak, so rare the center was still cold. Said it was probably iron deficiency. Girls need more iron when they're going through puberty, he explained. Their bodies are adjusting to monthly cycles. And speaking of which, Malcolm said Bonnie had become more sensitive to those cycles. She'd get irritable and restless like clockwork, couldn't stand being around people, would lock herself in her room for days at a time. He'd read that teenage girls' hormones were more in tune with lunar patterns than most people realized. Some girls could even predict their periods based on the moon phases. Bonnie's seemed to sync perfectly with the full moon every month. He mentioned how she'd been asking about her mother lately, about the family history, about whether certain traits ran in the family. Malcolm had been trying to explain that some things were genetic, that Bonnie might experience changes her friends didn't go through, that she needed to be patient with herself during this difficult transition. All normal teenage stuff, Malcolm insisted. Hormonal changes, growth spurts, her body adjusting to womanhood. Nothing to worry about. You know what Sheriff Miller heard? A father making excuses. A father who thought his daughter was too special, too fragile for the real world. A father desperately trying to explain away something he didn't want anyone looking at too closely. S.O. Miller dug deeper. Background check on Malcolm Driscoll revealed the family had lived in Portland before moving to Spokane in August. 2 teenagers went missing from their Portland neighborhood last spring, found later both victims of a vicious and brutal attack from an animal of unknown origin. Both had been students at Bonnie's school. Both had histories of bullying her. The pattern stretched across state lines: 5 dead kids, 2 cities, 1 quiet girl at the center of it all. Miller requested a warrant, Halloween night, so he thought it might take time with judges out at parties or taking their children trick-or-treating. But he was surprised when it came through at sunset. Miller headed to the Driscoll house with backup requested but still 20 minutes out. He wasn't waiting. What he didn't know was that at that exact moment, inside that house, Bonnie Driscoll was sitting at the kitchen table with her father, finally asking the question that had been eating at her for months. Why did everyone who hurt her disappear? She told him she'd noticed the pattern. Portland first, now here. She asked him what he'd done, asked if he'd killed those kids to protect her, asked if he thought she was so weak, so broken, that she needed him to murder for her. Malcolm tried to calm her down, voice steady, controlled. He told her she didn't understand, told her to breathe, to control herself. But Bonnie's voice just kept rising. She demanded the truth, demanded to know what kind of monster her father was. That's when it started. Her jaw distended with a crack like snapping wood. Bonnie's scream twisted mid-breath into something that didn't belong in a human throat, a sound caught between shriek and howl that made Malcolm's blood run cold. Her bones weren't just breaking, they were reshaping. Her spine arched backward as vertebrae popped and reformed, each crack echoing through the kitchen. Fur didn't sprout. It erupted through splitting skin in dark patches that spread like wildfire across her arms, her face, her chest. Her fingers curled inward, nails thickening and darkening into claws that gouged deep scratches into the kitchen table. Her face, God, her face. The bones of her skull were shifting, pushing forward into a muzzle, while her teeth elongated into fangs that tore through her gums. Blood and saliva dripped from her mouth. She was changing early. The stress, the rage, the confrontation. It had triggered the transformation hours before moonrise. And Malcolm's eyes filled with horror because she was losing herself faster than he'd ever seen, consumed by the beast before she could understand what was happening to her. He tried to talk her down, tried to reach the human part of her that was still in there. Too late. She was gone, lost to the beast, her humanity buried under instinct and rage and fear. So Malcolm did the only thing he could do. He transformed, too. In that kitchen, father and daughter became monsters. Malcolm's larger wolf form tackled Bonnie's, trying to pin her, trying to keep her from hurting herself or running outside where someone might see. They fought with snarls and claws tearing at each other. A father desperately trying to restrain a daughter who just learned what she truly was. Sheriff Miller pulled up to the Driscoll house at 8:47 p.m., The warrant was in his jacket pocket. 5 teenagers dead over 2 months. Malcolm's nervous interviews. His daughter Bonnie at the center of everything. Backup was still 15 minutes out. He wasn't waiting. He was halfway up the front walk when he heard it. Sounds from inside the house that made every hair on his neck stand straight up. Snarling. Deep, animalistic growling. Something heavy crashing into furniture. Glass breaking. And underneath it all, a sound that could have been human screaming or could have been something else entirely. He drew his weapon, approached the door, knocked hard, announced himself. He yelled it was the sheriff's department and commanded that whoever was inside to open the door. The snarling got louder. Something slammed into a wall inside so hard the whole house shook. More crashing. The sound of claws scraping on wood or tile. He banged on the door again, shouting. No response, except those terrible sounds. He kicked the door. Once, twice. On the third kick, the frame splintered and the door flew inward. What he saw inside froze his body to its core. Two wolves in the middle of the kitchen. Not dogs, wolves. Massive things, easily 200 pounds each, bigger than any wolf he'd ever seen in 20 years of law enforcement. They were fighting. The larger one had the smaller pinned against the base of the cabinets, jaws clamped around its throat, trying to hold it down without killing it. Chairs knocked over, cabinet doors hanging open, blood on the tile. The smaller wolf thrashed, trying to break free, its claws scraped across the floor, gouging the linoleum. The larger one held firm, this low growl rumbling from its chest that sounded almost like words, almost like it was trying to calm the other one down. Then the smaller wolf's head turned toward him. Its eyes caught his flashlight beam. Miller's breath stopped. Those eyes were human, terrified, young. He was looking at a wolf's face with a human girl's eyes staring back at him. His training took over. Active threat, civilian in danger, discharge weapon. He fired 3 times. The reports echoed through the kitchen like thunder. The larger wolf jerked with each impact, blood blooming across dark fur. It released the smaller one and staggered backward, those 2 intelligent eyes finding his face. There was something in that look, accusation maybe, or understanding. Then it collapsed. The smaller wolf bolted, launched itself through the kitchen window in an explosion of glass. Miller heard it hit the ground outside, heard it running. He chased it, heart hammering, adrenaline screaming through his system. But the thing was impossibly fast. He caught glimpses between the trees, a dark shape moving like liquid shadow. Within 30 seconds, it was gone. He swept his flashlight through the woods, searching for tracks, for blood, for anything. Nothing. Just the sound of his own ragged breathing and sirens in the distance getting closer. When he returned to the house, his hands were shaking. His mind was trying to rationalize what he'd seen. Some kind of large dogs, maybe. Some kind of animal attack. Anything but what his eyes had actually witnessed. He found the body on the kitchen floor. Malcolm Driscoll lay there, naked and bleeding from 3 gunshot wounds to his chest. Human now. Not a wolf. The impossible made flesh right there in front of him. The fur that had covered him was already dissolving into nothing, like it had never existed at all. Malcolm was still breathing, barely. Miller knelt down beside him, ear close to Malcolm's mouth. Malcolm's eyes found Miller's face. His lips moved, trying to form words through the blood filling his lungs. The words came in fragments, desperate, broken. He said his daughter had been transforming in her sleep for months, hunting the kids who hurt her, not remembering any of it when she woke up. He'd been trying to protect her, trying to teach her control before telling her the truth. It was a family curse, he said, had been for generations. She was out there now, alone, afraid. During the next full moon, she'd transform again, whether she wanted to or not. Malcolm's hand reached up, grabbed Miller's jacket with what little strength he had left. His voice dropped to a whisper. He begged Miller not to let them study her like an animal, not to let them turn her into something for scientists to dissect and examine. Then Malcolm Driscoll died on his kitchen floor, still trying to protect the daughter he'd failed to save. Sheriff Miller called it in, requested an ambulance, even though he knew it was too late. When the other deputies arrived, he tried to explain what he'd seen. 2 wolves fighting. One escaped. The other transformed back into a man after he shot it. They looked at him like he'd lost his mind. The official report stated that Sheriff Miller had responded to a domestic disturbance call. He'd discovered Malcolm Driscoll physically restraining his daughter during a violent confrontation. Officer discharged his weapon in defense of the minor. Subject died at the scene. Daughter fled and remains missing. Nobody wrote the word werewolf in any official document. They searched for Bonnie Driscoll for 3 weeks, found nothing. The case went cold. Malcolm was buried quietly. The missing teenagers were added to cold case files, and Sheriff Miller was put on administrative leave for the shooting. Malcolm's dying words echoed in Miller's mind. Fragmented warnings about curses and full moons, and a daughter who didn't know what she was. Bonnie Driscoll was out there in those mountains, alone, dangerous, transforming every full moon into something that hunted. But nobody would ever believe him. 3 months later, hikers started reporting sightings. A wolf in the Cascade Mountains, bigger than normal, eyes that looked almost human in the moonlight, always spotted during full moons, always alone. Sheriff Miller sees those reports cross his desk. He knows it's her, knows she's still out there, learning to survive with the curse her father died trying to teach her about. Every full moon she's hunting. He's the only one who knows the truth, the only one who saw what Malcolm Driscoll really was, what his daughter became. Nobody will ever believe him. The truth is too impossible, too insane. Sometimes late at night, Miller stands at his window and stares at the mountains, wondering if she's watching back, wondering if she remembers the man who killed her father, wondering what happens when a teenage werewolf grows up alone in the wilderness with no one to teach her the difference between monster and human. Malcolm Driscoll spent years burying bodies to hide his daughter's curse. In the end, Sheriff Miller buried the truth for the same reason, because some secrets are too dangerous to speak out loud, because some monsters are too real for the world to accept. Well, that's how the story ends. Tell me, if you were Sheriff Miller, could you live with knowing that truth and never being able to prove it? Would you keep searching for Bonnie Driscoll, or would you let her disappear into those mountains? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories about the impossible truths we bury to protect our sanity intrigue you, don't forget to subscribe. And remember, sometimes the monsters we create are the ones we fail to protect, and the heaviest burdens are the truths no one will believe.